Welcome to Week 9 Boom Bust Fantasy Football Show, brought to you by Fantasy Football Network and Sellout Crowd. I'm Corey, and I'm joined by my brother Kyle. We're going to break down some booms and busts at each position for you for Week 9 Fantasy Football matchups. Let's break it down for him, Kyle, and try to lead everyone to victory this week. What do you got for us first?
I hope we can help lead everybody to victory this week. Let's start out with our boom quarterback, Mr. Dak Prescott. So coming out of the bye last week, thought he'd have a little bit of a rough game. Had him as my bust. Not making that mistake again this week. Going with him as my boom against Philly. The way you beat Philly is through the air. And Sam Howell just put up 30-some fantasy points on him last week. Dak Prescott come out and do at least as good as that. They're 25th against fantasy quarterbacks. The Dallas offense also come out looking a lot more dynamic after the bye versus the Rams than they had before, where they were just pounding the football up the middle when it wasn't working still. So it's nice to see maybe they worked on some stuff during that bye week. And as long as this offense is rolling in the passing game, I'm going to stick with Dak here against Philly.
Yeah, it does seem that Dallas offense is starting to hit its stride a little bit. Been struggling and finally kind of hitting that stride. And you said it best. You're not going to beat Philly on the ground. You got to go through the air. And Washington just lit them up. And Dallas has a much better passing game than Washington does. So give me Dak Prescott. I agree.
Yep, absolutely.
Fool me once.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, who's your bust?
So my bust QB of the week is Mr. Gino Smith. Playing against Baltimore. Baltimore has actually allowed the fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks in the league so far this season. Statistically, that sounds mean, but when you look at who they've played so far, they haven't played some of the best quarterbacks: Carolina, the Giants, Arizona, Cleveland, right? But they just shut down Jared Goff in week 7, which was probably the best QB they've played so far this year. And I think they can absolutely do the exact same thing to Gino Smith. Gino had a really good game, really good season last year. I think we had higher hopes for him this year. He doesn't look quite as good throwing the ball. He's not quite as dynamic this year, not putting up the points in bunches. So I think he struggles against Baltimore this week.
I was about to mention the same thing, that Gino Smith last year had a really good season, and it was kind of coming into this season. Was he just kind of playing above his level, a little out of his mind? Could he repeat it? I think we're seeing that he was playing a little out of his league last year. But also this year, they're able to lean on that run a little bit more. They've got Kenneth Walker, Stan Healthy, Charbonnet in that backfield as well. So this offense is running the ball more. Plus, right now, you've got DK Metcalf struggling with some injuries. It's just not boding well for this. And like you said, the matchup with Baltimore in Baltimore, I'm just not liking it very much.
Yeah, me either.
All right, let's move on to running backs.
All right, our boom running back of the week is Jerome Ford versus Arizona. He's coming back. He's going to be another week healthier from that injury. They let him play last week. But because he wasn't still quite 100%, they had a little bit of a three-headed monster there, right? They had him, they had Kareem Hunt, and then they had Pierre Strong, all getting a piece of the pie. This week, he's coming back a little bit healthier. I think he starts getting a bigger piece of that pie. Deshaun Watson's still not back. They're going to be leaning on that run again. And you can run on Arizona. They're towards the bottom of the league versus running backs. So I think a bigger piece of the pie versus this kind of defense, I think it's just a recipe for fantasy success.
Well, I also want to factor in the quarterback play for Arizona, right? They're going to have what was like a third-string quarterback, right, because they just shipped Dobbs off. So my guess is Cleveland is going to get a big lead in this game, which means run the ball, which is what they're best at anyways.
Yeah.
So they're just going to run the ball. So even if it's a three-headed monster again, everyone's going to get so many touches. It doesn't really matter. But I think if you're bringing Jerome Ford back, trying to get him back into the groove, Arizona's the team to do it against, and I think they take advantage of that. And again, nursing a lead, I think Jerome Ford gets a lot more touches this week.
Yep, absolutely. I think Pierre Strong would be the one whose piece of the pie shrinks as a result.
Agreed. All righty, who's your bust?
So our bust running back of the week, Mr. Tony Pollard. I hate to do this to him because he's coming off of an already rough game last week. But Philly, we talked about it when we talked about Dak. They're not a team you can beat on the ground. You're gonna struggle on the ground versus Philly. The way to beat them is through the air. They're top 5 in the league against running backs. So as much as I love Tony Pollard in general, this week, not a big fan. Of course, it's hard to sit him, especially you've got a few bye weeks this week and stuff, but I would expect closer to what we saw last week out of him versus, going forward. I think he has the potential for some much, much larger games through the end of the season.
Yeah, I think the only way Pollard has any sort of productive fantasy day is if they throw him the ball.
Yeah.
Right? Last week, he saw a little bit of success through the air with Antonio Gibson getting 5 targets, 5 catches. So he got some fantasy points there. But they had a hard time getting the running game going. Washington did, again, beating them through the air. So going back to Dak Prescott having the game. And it's not because Tony Pollard isn't great. It's just because of game flow and strategy and just the opponent is just what this comes down to. So as hard as it is to say Tony Pollard is a bust, it's just what it's looking like. That's the forecast.
Yeah, exactly.
All righty. I'm going to take a break really quick and talk about Fantasy Football Advice Network. Go to fantasyfootballadvice.com and you can join for free the only social media network dedicated 100% to fantasy football. You can ask questions, answer questions, build a community, and help one another with all of your fantasy football questions to help win your week. 100% free. So go join and have a good time. Alrighty, guys, let's move on to wide receivers. Kyle, who's your wide receiver boom of week 9?
My wide receiver boom, Mr. Rashee Rice. For the Kansas City Chiefs playing against Miami. Miami is 11th highest points allowed to slot wide receivers. Mahomes is not sick this week, and Rashee Rice has been the most consistent receiver on that team behind, of course, Travis Kelce, the GOAT. But this guy's role continues to increase every week. You see that chemistry and that trust building between him and Mahomes, and I think we finally have found that number one receiver for Mahomes that we've needed from that group of guys. We knew eventually one of them would separate. I think a lot of people expected it to be Kadarius Toney. Going into the season, there was a lot of hype on Sky Moore. Rashee Rice has turned out to be that guy. He's playing very, very well. And I think after a rough game last week for the Chiefs, I think they're going to want to come back and really prove a point against Miami this week. I mean, that was a brutal loss last week with Mahomes sick to the rival Broncos, right, who have been a horrible team this year.
Yep.
So this week they go to Germany. They play Miami. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a really fun, high-scoring game. I love Rashee Rice in this matchup.
I mean, I can't add much more to that. I think I agree. I think they're going to go to Germany and try to put on a show. I mean, that's going to be a fun game. I'm actually going to wake up and watch that one. It's the first Atlanta game I'm actually interested in waking up that early for.
Yeah.
But Rice, like you said, he's finally kind of becoming that number one wide receiver that everyone's kind of wanted to emerge in Kansas City. And he also gets some red zone looks, which makes him valuable too, so like that for him as well.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Who is your bust wide receiver?
So our bust receiver of the week, Mr. Hollywood Brown.
Ouch.
I know. I love Hollywood. But this week with a new QB in Clayton Tune after Josh Dobbs was shipped off to Minnesota, not to mention just the matchup against Cleveland. They've been shutting down receivers and quarterbacks all year. I don't think Clayton Tune is the one that comes in and changes that. So I'm really expecting a rough day out for that whole offense.
Yeah, I agree. And they're playing in Cleveland. So it's just,
Yes. Yeah.
just stack something else on top of that.
They're going from the
It's not
desert to the cold. They're going from the desert to the cold. That's going to be tough.
Yep, with Clayton Tune and whew, it's just gonna be bad. I just don't like it. That Cleveland defense has been so stingy this year, all the way around. They've surprised everybody and just been so stingy. So I'm not liking that at all. Marquise Brown may be able to find some success if they get gadgety with him, but that's the only way I can see that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they try to pull that out though. So
no, I mean, even if Kyler did make it back this week, I think that's a rough matchup for them either way.
yeah, that's why I'm not confident Kyler's coming back this week because I don't think they would.
I think they've already said he won't be back this week. I think we'll see him. It'll be next week or the week after still. But
yeah, I think they're just kind of throwing in the towel on this week and just being like, we'll take one. We'll take an L this week and then just recover against Atlanta in week 10.
Exactly. We'll just take this one on the chin and better luck next week.
Exactly. Alrighty, let's move on to tight ends then. Who is your boom tight end of the week?
The boom tight end of the week, Mr. Dallas Goedert. Now, first I want to address, this is my third player from this game, but I feel like it's the three guys that might have some question marks going into this game. And let me assure you, Goddard is going to have a good game because I think not only is Dallas 20th against tight ends in fantasy points this year, but we're bottom 6 in the league versus slot wide receivers allowing points. And I think Goddard plays in the slot a lot this weekend against us to take advantage of that. Could probably lead the league in targets or lead the team in targets this week against Dallas for that very reason. Like, that's a huge mismatch for them. Dallas has already been beaten up by tight ends this year. I mean, look, a few weeks ago what George Kittle did to us. Yeah, so I really think Goddard's in for a pretty big day.
I have nothing positive.
As a Dallas fan, unfortunately, I think
I have nothing positive to say about a Phillies player, so I'm ready to move on.
Well, then moving on, my bust tight end of the week, Mr. Cole Kmet. The Badgett that came in and he's playing QB for Fields while he's hurt, puts up a 0 burger in week 7, comes out last week. Nobody's expecting anything. And he's like the feature receiver on the team, puts up 18 PPR points, just going crazy. Unfortunately, this week, you're not going to see a repeat. They're playing New Orleans, top 5 in the league versus tight ends. Like, he's not going to have a very easy time, not only against tight ends, but they're also 6 versus slot receivers. So wherever he's at in the formation, he's going to have a hard time against this New Orleans defense. So I would try to find another option. I don't think Cole Kmet was drafted as a starter by anyone, probably. So you have another option on your team, just go with them, whoever it is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he had 10. He was 10 for 10 last week. 10 targets, 10 receptions, no touchdown. This week, to score any sort of points, it's going to be a touchdown dependency. Yep. He's not going to get 10 catches against New Orleans. They're too stingy for that. Yeah. So I don't see that happening, and I honestly don't see him getting a touchdown. So I am going somewhere else this week. That New Orleans defense is no joke against tight ends. So
yeah,
and this QB is not the one to just bust that open. This isn't the guy who's just gonna come in and be like, "Hey, I could do better than everyone else." Yeah, that's not gonna happen. So
no, they're gonna struggle this week against the Saints.
Yeah, I agree. Alrighty. So that does it for all the booms and busts. Now let's go on to a couple streamers here. Let's talk about your streamer kicker first.
Yeah, streamer kicker, Mr. Matt Gay for Indianapolis. You know, he's been quietly very, very consistent, very solid kicker this year. But playing Carolina this week, that team is capable of putting up plenty of points on Carolina. So I think he's going to have plenty of opportunities to put up points himself. So if he's available, and he's actually available in quite a few leagues that I'm in still. So like if he's available and you need a kicker, go grab him up.
Well, like you said, availability. According to Sleeper right now, he's only rostered in 43% of leagues. So in over half leagues, he's still available.
That's
And
criminal. Like he's
the
playing
number 6
well.
kicker on the season right now. So
Yeah.
he's been consistent all season. Granted, he had that one game, 24 points that kind of sets him up above. But for most games, he's scoring double-digit points.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, playing at Carolina, you're going to have so many scoring opportunities. You're going to be down in scoring position often. So you just want opportunities for a kicker in scoring position. That's what you want. So yeah, I'm rolling with that. Alrighty, let's move on to your streamer defense of the week.
Yeah, my streamer defense of the week, the Las Vegas Raiders. It's kind of an interesting pick.
I would agree.
So when I picked this team, I had decided to use them before Josh McDaniel got fired. And I know it's going to be weird, them not having their coach and some things have changed or whatever. But I'm sticking with them for this reason. They're playing the New York Giants.
New York Giants.
So even if Daniel Jones is back this week, and there's really no guarantee yet that he will be, he has taken 28 sacks and thrown 6 interceptions in the 5 starts that he's had. That's crazy.
That's insane.
Already. But then Tyrod Taylor got hurt and he's missed. So if they don't get Daniel Jones, I couldn't even tell you the third stringer's name off the top of my head.
I think it's Tommy DeVito.
There you go. That guy's not going to get it done. So there's a reason why I didn't put the whole team on this slide, and why I put Max Crosby on this slide alone is because I think he is going to destroy whoever is playing quarterback for the Giants on Sunday. And I think he has multiple sacks, all the QB rush hurries, and I think he's going to absolutely wreck shop this weekend against the New York Giants offensive line and quarterback. And that's going to make it really difficult for them to put up points, which is something else you like. It's going to make them rush into throws, which is turnovers, maybe get a strip sack, get a fumble here, that, whatever. I see a lot of points, and I think most of it is a result of Max Crosby.
Well, it looks like Daniel Jones is probably going to play. He's trending that way. The problem is we don't know who he's going to throw the ball to, because Darren Waller is out with a hamstring injury, and that's obviously the best receiving option he had. So you've got a bunch of lower tier wide receivers. You have Saquon Barkley, but your offensive line is also terrible. So I agree with you. I think Crosby's going to have a fun day. Yeah. And the best shot that the Giants have at moving the ball is just maybe taking advantage of an eager Raiders defensive line and trying to throw some screen passes to Barkley, but that's really the only thing they have going for them.
That's about the only thing. And after a few of those, who's to say they don't catch on and start defending that? I don't know. I just don't see it going well for the Giants this weekend.
Faith is shaken for the Giants there. So I agree that Vegas and the Vegas defense put up 14 points against Detroit.
Yeah, they're playing really well. I mean, Max Crosby is one of the premier pass rushers in this league, so they're gonna have good games. And man, this is one of the matchups they can exploit for sure.
I agree. Alrighty, guys, that does it for our booms, busts, and streamers of the week. One more time, just want to invite you over to fantasyfootballadvice.com. Join the Fantasy Football Advice Network. It's free. Sign up, build a community, and ask questions and answer questions. Read articles, view videos, listen to podcasts, all kinds of good stuff over there. Free to sign up. That's fantasyfootballadvice.com. Go join the community and have some fun and win your week. All right, that's going to do it for us this week. Thanks for joining us for Booms and Busts, and good luck in your Week 9 matchups.
Good luck, guys. Thanks.